Well, this is the big one for the Sixth Doctor. I was going to have to get to it eventually. Trial of a Time Lord. Gonna kind of make a little bit of an event out of this one. I am going to be doing these in a lot more rapid succession. I don't mean completely rapid, not like back to back to back one day after another, but they're going to come out in a shorter succession than is generally true for the classic reviews here on this channel. And it'll just give me a chance to sort of experience this attempt at serialization. Classic Doctor Who didn't really do serialize. The closest they came prior to this was The Key to Time, which I have seen on DVD, actually. And that one is... The connections between those stories is real thin. This is a more legitimate attempt at serialization of telling a grander story while also telling smaller individual stories. So here we're going to talk about The Mysterious Planet, which is the first of these. Now, once I wrap these up, that'll actually be it for the Sixth Doctor. I'll have seen all of his stuff. And while it hasn't been great, thank goodness Big Finish got him to agree to work with them. I will say that I can notice some ways in which they are trying to make corrections with his characterization, particularly when it comes to his relationship with Perry. Now, it's still not great, mostly hampered by the fact that Perry rarely seems like she's happy or excited or even having fun being with him. She seems to be in a constant state of, can we just leave, please? And like almost immediately and always. She just always comes across like she's been dragged there against her will, which, you know, coming off how he treated her last season, especially in his very first episode, yeah, that's not great. That having been said, he is a little bit softer. He is not as mean-spirited towards her. He is a bit dismissive, but dismissive is gentler than the harshness that he used to display towards her previously. I've sort of already jumped into talking about the main story of this chunk of it. I haven't really talked about the framing device. All right, first of all, let's back up. Opening shot of this whole thing is a banger. Like, it is a gorgeous model shot. Stunning. I don't know how truly accurate this is, but the joke among Doctor Who fans is that 90% of the season's budget was that shot. And that's probably an exaggeration, but also I could kind of believe it. Like, it's cinema worthy. It's a great shot. Nothing else in the episode looks that good. Nothing looks terrible, but it's all, you know, very basic rudimentary corridors and some stone huts, and it's in the woods. It's very basic. There was not a lot of money thrown at this outside of that opening shot. But we have a framing device of the Doctor being in what is initially categorized as an inquiry and then soon turns into a trial for his, basically conduct on becoming a Time Lord, his getting involved with things on various planets and how he shouldn't be doing that. And he is being prosecuted by the Valeyard. Now, you probably know the twist with the Valeyard. I will deal with it when we get there. Here he's presented primarily as a prosecutor, although he is a little bit more dickish than is necessary. So you do get a sense of something else is going on with this guy. This isn't him just dispassionately, you know, trying to do his job and conduct a trial. But he's functioning fairly well. The banter that goes on between him and Colin Baker as the Sixth Doctor. The Sixth Doctor is very incredulous in the trial setting, which is nice. It works well for him. There's also this woman, I guess she's a judge of sorts. There's a bit that happens later on. I think she might be a joke. Not like as a character, but I think... Okay, so I'll explain. At one point about... I think it's in the third episode. This is a four-parter, which is the other departure from the previous season, which tried to do longer two-part stories, and this is going back to the older format of shorter per episode and four-parters as the standard length. But I think it's in the third part that she kind of notes, we have to hear about and see these more brutal, violent things. Can we not have this? And she's basically complaining about the necessity of the violence in the Doctor Who story. And she's also dressed in white. And if you don't know the name Mary Whitehouse, this was a woman who was notorious about very loudly and vocally complaining about, well, the BBC in general, but Doctor Who in particular, for its violence. I wouldn't be shocked if that was a cheeky little knock on her. But the way this is framed is that the story we end up being told, the Mysterious Planet story, is being presented as evidence at trial. And it's kind of nice, but also kind of odd that they do give an explanation for why we see scenes that the Doctor isn't in. And there is an explanation for how they're able to acquire that footage and those perspectives. We don't get it until I think the third episode, or at the very least tail end of the second one. So like we've been going for a while, and then the story decides to answer the question of,
how did you know about the parts you weren't there for?
Because like it kind of gets established that the matrix where they're pooling this data can pull from the collective memories of any Time Lord, but we've got scenes of the villains, scenes of, these guys and this person and this tribe, and the Doctor's not there. How do you have this? They do answer that, but not for a couple of episodes after it's already been going. And it's a little odd to me that, well, it's not surprising. It is a little disappointing that they just come up with an excuse as to why telling the story in the standard format is still going to happen, even though the framing device and how they're explaining where this footage comes from, they shouldn't be able to. They just come up with an explanation as to why they are. I think it would have been kind of neat if they had actually run with the restriction and had this story presented only scenes that the Doctor is in, like narrow the field of view, give us that more limited perspective, see how it enables certain ways of telling stories, certain types of stories. I think that would have been really cool. And then so that kind of restriction doesn't hamper your future storytelling. Then for the second one, like introduce this idea and start telling it more traditionally. They don't do that, but one can dream. So there's that, and as I said, the Doctor in the courtroom scenes, he's quite good. Overall, Colin Baker is already better this season than he was the previous one, but he's quite good in the court scenes. And as I said, Perry just seems like she doesn't want to be there, which that's an ongoing issue, and what can you do? This is also the introduction of a character who I have seen before, although in his later appearance, Sabalon Glitz. So I've talked about him before when I reviewed Dragonfire. And it was interesting because I rewatched my review of that to see what I said about him at the time. And the way he's portrayed here actually kind of covers for something that I complained about there. So when I reviewed Dragonfire, which again is a later story, that's with the Seventh Doctor, I kind of complained that Sabalon Glitz was portrayed as this sort of roguish Han Solo type, yet he also did some truly awful stuff that it felt like the show didn't properly reckon with. Like, the big thing there was we have as a background to why he is where he is, and he's in the situation that he had been captaining a ship and he sold his crew into slavery. Like, this is our light and cheerful roguish co-lead for this? Really? And it seemed like a real big piece of disconnect. It now seems less so like that now, because seeing this, his first appearance, he's a murderous mercenary, and he brags about his prison record. So what in truth I had interpreted in Dragonfire as a light-hearted character being given an oddly brutal backstory that didn't fit was in fact an originally somewhat brutal character, or at the very least a very uncaring character, starting to soften up and being softer than he was in this when he appears in Dragonfire. So like that later appearance makes more sense now. Because he is He has actually great back and forth and rapport with, I believe his name's Dibber, who's kind of his cohort. They play off each other really well. I enjoy them. I see why Glitz was brought back. I kind of wish Dibber had been too. But I see why this was the character that they thought they could get more out of. The actual story that is being told within the framing device of the trial is okay. Like, it's real basic. You know, there's some ancient technology that's kind of overrun, and there's humans who are living a more primitive life, and the robot is like a weird dictator thing, and there's people who follow the robot just because it's the only thing they know how to do. And there's a couple of, I think they're supposed to be android, a couple of twin characters who I don't know why they thought that was a fun bit to include. It was just kind of like, okay, I don't know why this is here. And it just kind of bumbles along. It's fine. It's not bad. And trust me, some of the stuff during 6's era is bad. It's not bad, but there's nothing really remarkable about it. The framing device is already more interesting than the main story that is taking place within it, at least in this first instance. Just overall, the main villain is just kind of weak. There are some good bits here and there, though. I kind of like that towards the end, the Doctor tries to talk down the villain with logic and reason and rationality, and it doesn't work. And then Glitz shows up and just pulls the most inept base level con, and that works. It just kind of shows that the Doctor was kind of overthinking the problem a little bit. That's kind of fun. The Doctor has some genuinely more heroic moments. You're saying to Perry, we can't leave when there's people's lives that I could be saving. Like, that feels like something the Doctor would not have said last season. So that works, and that plays well. I rather like that the Doctor keeps mispronouncing the Valyard's title. He calls him like the boat yard, the scrap yard, the farm yard. Like the first time he did it, I'm like, wait, did he just? And then he did some of the other ones later. I'm like, oh, okay, cheeky bugger. And there's little bits and moments there. There's actually like a genuine moment of kind of existential horror for Perry. This isn't really a spoiler because it's covered very early in the story that this is actually far future Earth, but it's in the wrong place in space. And Perry coming to grips with the fact that everything she knows is gone and she's standing in the ruins of her own world, kind of gives her that full scope of the universe moment, and that's played pretty well. So like there's bits and moments here, and the performances range from workable to decent. Overall, though, this is one where the framing device is more interesting, which, given that the framing device is going to continue on and this story gets closed off, that might not be the end of the world. We'll see how it holds up as I get to the other ones. What did you think about this first part of the Trial of a Time Lord? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out there, like, share, subscribe are of great assistance. And even if you're not up for that, don't worry too much about it. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can come on back next time you need a break. Cool. Massive thanks to my Patreon supporters, and in particular, I want to thank Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfullah, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Ruth, Oliver B., Solitary Pictures, Ulrich Bogdan, Melinda Walters, Jen, Leotha Boyd, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Fernabilax the Poodle, Robin Powell, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Kasparov, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, David Hall, Shayla Gourlay, and Rosalind Bennett. Thanks for your support. You can get your name in the credits too if you feel like hearing me possibly struggle with it for several times before getting it right.